This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Welcome to the Front Porch. Real conversations about life, leadership, and perseverance. Each week, Dennis Polian and Jay Davis bring you inspiring stories and lessons to help you grow, lead, and thrive. Pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Front Porch podcast. I'm Dennis Polian with Jay Davis. We're glad you could join us today. Nothing sexy. Mastering the mundane.
Besides me.
Opinions vary from what I've been told. The most important thing, but what I would say as a business owner, the hardest thing, personnel. Finding good people, managing people. The coaching part for me is the easiest part. It's finding people from a values perspective that philosophically really like kind of have the same, as much buy-in as they can at the, in comparison to you as the business owner, so that you're building something together. Does that kind of fit your experience? Have you had other experiences with that?
Yeah, just to be blunt, what we thought was coaching was convincing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest trap we fall into with personnel is, when you kind of take a step back after you maybe didn't hire somebody or let somebody go, is that you realize you spent most of the time convincing yourself, not coaching your people. And if you did coach them, you tried to coach them out of something that they were never going to change.
Yep.
Which, again, goes back to, are you coaching or convincing?
Yep. Yep. Mike Munchak, famous Houston Oiler, Hall of Famer, one of my...
Name dropper. We'll call this episode the name dropper.
I don't mean to name drop, but he is one of the finest professionals I've ever met, a wonderful person, one of the best bosses I've ever had. He always used to say, you're either coaching it or you're allowing it when things aren't going well. And that always stuck with me. And I always took a lot of pride in any team that I was responsible for, making sure that we didn't go down that path, that we were doing exactly what we needed to do to impact the overall team or organization. And then when I became a business owner, I did the exact opposite. Like you said, I convinced myself that I was doing the right thing, but I was avoiding actual coaching.
And you give that particular person so much time, so much effort. Again, it probably comes back to a little bit of an ego thing too, that, hey, I can flip this person, right?
Yep.
And then you get so focused on almost yourself. I mean, I can't tell you probably 2, 3, 4 times with my agency in 10 years where I look back and think that I was selling myself on this person and then I neglected everybody else in the agency. And you don't realize it until it's too late.
Yep. I just made that mistake. I waited too long, but I didn't wait as long as I think I may have.
You were better this time.
And
absolutely.
But when I look back now and look at the impact, the emotional impact and the distraction that it had on the rest of the team, our daily production changed, not because of what I did, but because of what I did not do.
Right.
As the leader. And all people related. Has nothing to do with our system, our process, our skills, the products that we sell, the services that we provide, had all to do with me not doing my part as the leader / coach to develop folks in the right way and to make changes when they needed to be made.
So let me put it back on you. He didn't give me a chance to prepare for this, so
This was supposed to be a shotgun episode.
I'm gonna flip the tables. So, when you think about that, is it? And I kind of know the answer, but And, this is the second time it's happened, so in your short career. But do you think it was, do you feel like you removed yourself from it being about you?
I think I did. That's a great way to put it, because I didn't think about it in that regard, but I think that I did.
It was always about me, and I don't mean to interrupt.
I mean, it still is basically, but what I realized in the looking back at the decision-making process, and then looking back right now as you ask that question, is what drove me to the decision was the impact on the rest of the team. All I was thinking about was, where is the rest of the team going to go if I don't make a change, and if I do make a change? And then what happens to the rest of the team on what I do moving forward. And what I did was make them a part of the process.
And that's key. I think that's key for future benefits. And that's something that, as a leader, you don't realize that other people are, your other personnel, your other staff, they're watching you. Mm-hmm. And you get so honed in on this particular person or this particular situation that you forget that your other people are watching you, and they want to see what you're going to do. And if you're, we ask our staff to be consistent every day, but are you going to be consistent as a leader? Mm-hmm. And I've had something come up in the last couple of weeks, and one thing that I gave a lot of thought to was, not that they were forcing me to pull the trigger, but I knew that they were watching me. There was a couple comments here and there, and I knew that I'd gotten so hyper-focused on this particular individual that, and I'd, preached this message to the team, but the people that are in line's the wrong term, but the people that are bought in, that believe in the agency, believe in you as a leader, they took a step back and they wanted to see what was going to happen. And I'm glad I've been doing this long enough to be aware of that, because I almost missed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can have so many ramifications down the line. And it's easy to forget about the impact that you have when you're in a smaller organization, because there's less eyes and ears really to tell you what's going on. In my experience, coming from what I would call other people's money,
right,
where we have big teams, and I might be responsible for 15 to 20 people. Some of them don't report directly to me, so you have to be an influential leader there. Get buy-in without authority. So challenging, and you get consumed just like you would in a small setting as a small business owner or entrepreneur. But what I noticed was all of those organizations I worked for, there were always people, whether they had an agenda or not is irrelevant, you were always getting information. Yeah. This is happening, this person is doing this, this person is doing that. Most of it, the vast majority of it, noise, right? But certain things you kind of pick up on and then maybe watch, and then you start to notice, oh my goodness, okay, that, if I don't do something about this,
right,
there's going to be a credibility issue. Or if I don't do something about that, it's going to impact the boss, the big boss. Or, whatever it is we might be playing for, whatever phase of the calendar we were in. And when I left that environment and, essentially, put my name on the door, now I don't have that. I've got everybody just looking at me for direction. On top of trying to do marketing, networking, systems, building, how do we use technology the best? Like all of the hats that you have to wear, you miss the personnel stuff, but it's the most important thing, and we allow ourselves to get away from it.
Life moves fast, but the unexpected doesn't care about your calendar. At the Polian Agency, we help successful families protect what they've worked so hard to build. From life insurance to smart coverage strategies, we tailor protection that grows with you, so you're prepared for whatever's next. The Polian Agency, where protection meets purpose. Visit PolianAgency.com or call 254-772-1444 to start the conversation.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because what happens is oh my goodness, we work so hard to kind of save the potential of that person. And you have the numbers to back this up recently. We work so hard to save the potential of that person that we absolutely lose momentum. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just drains momentum.
Yep.
Because you think you're being the perfect leader, and you yourself, by not taking care of the situation, you're sucking the life out of the agency in a way.
Yep.
I mean, not directly, but you pulled the numbers on this situation, and you knew that after you looked at it, you're like, oh my gosh.
I mean, to the date.
Yes.
The date where the environment started to change is when the numbers started to slow. And what people forget, in every industry there is a tail to everything you do, whether it's sourcing to presentation to actually getting payment and delivering the service or product. In our industry, right, that tail can be almost a 30-day cycle at times. At times it can be a 1-week cycle, but the bottom line is, because of that, every single thing you do impacts the next day's momentum. So if you have multiple days and then a week to multiple weeks of decreasing momentum, think about how much work it takes and how much time it takes to ramp that back up.
And so you compare kind of our two worlds right now. You're a new business. Mm-hmm. And, in the agency, the company I'm with, we can absorb that a little bit. You can't absorb that. I mean, you can't take that hit, because it could set you back for a quarter.
Yep. Yeah. And we've been fortunate that we had a good year last year, to the point where our quarter right now is fairly good. But what I'm looking at and what I'm forecasting is the second quarter is not going to be what it could have been, which is great. It could have been great.
Right.
And it's not going to be, but it's my fault. And I have nobody, right? I have nobody to blame.
I wouldn't
but
say
myself.
It's your fault, but as we talk to all our loyal listeners out there and our loyal viewers, is if you're, we talk about new business and doing your due diligence, my goodness, if you have a bad hire and you're a new business, it's already hard enough to get this thing off the ground. Mm-hmm. And it's going to happen when you're a new business, especially if you're new to the industry as well. I mean, that's a double hammer there, right? But if you can't get off it quickly, it's going to pull you down for a bit.
Yep. And that's the challenge that we all face, especially when you're not so big that people can hide. When it's entrepreneurial and it's from the ground up, there's no hiding. Mm-mm. and it becomes pretty obvious. So then, when you were going through it, what did you lean on to kind of get yourself to the point where I know I got to do this, and I'm gonna do it. You know, like how do you get yourself through that convincing phase? You know, where, you know, the old coaching saying, potential gets you fired.
Yeah. Yeah. You, well, as you've experienced, I did the same thing. It takes a while for you to understand it, and not. I mean, we understand it. You know, we wouldn't have taken the chance to be a business owner if we didn't understand it. It's the same old deal. You know, you have to experience it, and the hardest part of it all is we're dealing with people, and you know, we joke on the podcast that, you know, you do have a heart. But that's the hardest part.
Don't tell anybody.
That's the hardest part. We'll retract that. We'll redact that from the record. But, you know, the conversations you have with your wife, you know, about personnel since you've started. I know a certain individual listens to this, so it's okay. But you, I don't think you ever get good at it, especially at the scale that we're dealing with. You know, like you said, when you're in college NFL, you had 15, 20 people. You know, you can not hide things, but when it's your own money, when it's a smaller scale, and you realize that if you wait, how much money it's costing you off your bottom line, not that you don't care about people, but last I checked, you're not a nonprofit, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I wasn't either when I had my agency for 10 years. And the quicker, not quicker, but the more you can be nimble in that situation to where you can pivot and know that it's not, you know, we're dealing with people, so emotion's going to get involved, but you can't, it's not about emotion, it's about standards. And the more people understand that, the more people know that, and you're great about this is how we do it. When you have standards, and again, you know, we'll go back, this is what this podcast is about too, is when you have standards, you have systems, and you have expectations, then hopefully those people understand that it's not a people problem. It's a process problem. You know, did they not have the skill? Did we not provide the clarity? Is the culture not aligned? You know, there's 3 or 4 levers there where they know too. If you have people if you brought them in, they have an awareness, right? If you brought them into your operation, they have an awareness. So they know, without you really saying it, that they're missing something there.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't know what your question was, but I really think...
I don't know either at this point.
Well,
You
just mesmerized by
deflected.
the new studio. I didn't deflect. No, I didn't. I had a really tough situation in my agency. And I won't get into the details, but it was the greatest part of my agency in terms of personnel, and it was the worst part of my agency. And what made it great was customer service, was a customer experience. I mean, I had clients that I didn't have to reach out to because they wanted to stop by just to see this particular person. Well, time is money, right? Mm-hmm. And in the market I was in, I had a lot of farmers. And you know what? When it's off season, the old farmers go get their cup of coffee, and they're going to stop by the Davis Insurance Agency and see this pretty gal at the front desk who just, you know, can cut them up 9 ways a Sunday and make them feel like, you know, they're 10 feet tall. But then that was the part of the downfall too, and that was tough. That was tough because in terms of retention, it was off the charts. In terms of new business production, Terrible.
Well, that's some of the other piece of it is when you have somebody that's really skilled, great with people, respected, well thought of, builds great relationships, really is a part of the reputation of your business, but they don't produce.
Well, they're not the owner either.
And they're not the owner.
Yeah.
And I think, at least in the insurance space today,
that was the epiphany for me too.
In the insurance space today, the owner is less important if the team is right and the systems are right.
Totally agree.
Because people are not shopping for relationships anymore. They used to,
not.
but they're not.
Unfortunately, there's just a small portion that are.
Yes, and you could get away with that in a big market, but
Right.
We're not in a big market. So I market all over the state of Texas, and hopefully we'll be marketing in other states. So we're not going to have the cup of coffee and the drop in, and I think that that's okay if it's done the right way, and
With the right guardrails too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that goes back to system and process. Mm-hmm. But when you have that person that can do all of that, and then they feel like they've been so productive because they had that positive impact,
Right.
they've justified their activity for the day. And now how do you hold them accountable? Because
You can't.
well, you have
I'm
to,
just
right?
being honest.
It's hard.
But that's where I had my biggest issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is, I'll name drop here, but I never met him. But
Here we go.
A mentor of mine,
Here we go.
a mentor of mine gave me a great Paul Brown quote. So anybody who's listening who's not a football person, Paul Brown, the founder of the Cleveland Browns, longtime competition committee member, unbelievable owner, founder of the Bengals, used to say, everybody will be treated fairly, but not equally. And your level of fairness is going to be dictated by your level of contribution to this organization. And the situation we're talking about fits that, right? There are other contributions. However, then what do you do to offset what's not done? We don't have $400 million in television money coming in.
You don't?
Right, in the door. So how
Right.
do you got to come to grips as the business owner. How do I realign and make it a positive experience for that person without causing negative impact on what they're already doing? Because in a way, you're basically telling them, hey, it's great, but it's not good enough.
Right. And for a new business, new small business, ROI is so huge.
So important.
I mean, it's absolutely paramount in analyzing your business on a daily,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But yeah, personnel. I mean, we love them. We always. I mean, this person in my agency was unbelievable, and it ended nasty. Unfortunately, not my doing, but this particular person will never be a business owner. And never saw it from a business owner standpoint. They saw it from, I'm making all these people happy. I'm making their day. We're retaining clients. But at the end of the day, we're pulling you offline for, Dennis, I'll be honest, there were times where we were holding court out there for 2 or 3 hours.
And don't forget, right? So if it's a farmer, let's bore everybody and talk about insurance and compensation.
Right.
So if it's a farmer who has a $10,000, say he just has it's a small farm, so he's got $10,000 in premium. You're on renewal. Are you getting $1,000? Are you getting $800? It's probably somewhere between $750 and $800, depending on all the other factors. And that person, through the course of a year, has consumed over 20 hours, 25 hours.
Eat up all your profit.
That's flaming dollar bills in the garbage can.
In any business, they'd be let go, right? In
Yes,
any business.
In any business.
But in a not small town, where I was at, a similar market to Waco, but a lot of my farmers came in from small towns.
Yep.
And
they made it a trip. It was
Yes.
a purposeful, intentional trip.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do right by them. But when you think about it, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Every 15 minutes of distraction requires another 25 to 30 minutes of refocus. So if you've just been chewing the hay for 2 hours, it's going to be another hour and a half at least before real productivity starts back up.
Yeah.
But everybody's going to think it was a great day. And I've used that story because you've told me that before with my team and constantly talk about time management, what we're doing, and that it's okay to move people along. Now, not as many people come into the office anymore, but we still get folks. We're in a transient area that's pretty popular, so people will come in if they're getting lunch at a nearby hot spot or whatever, and they just want to sit down. They want to talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. I always say no religion and politics on the first date, and we try to keep that rule, so we keep it friendly. But then they leave an hour later, 45 minutes to an hour later, and then there's another 20 minutes of everybody talking about the conversation.
I need to use the restroom, and what? It's lunchtime.
And I look like the bad guy because I'm like, hey, folks, we got to get back to work.
Right.
I hear the door open. Sometimes I close my door if I recognize the voice, and I shouldn't say this, but I'm like, we are not going to get any work done unless this guy.
I almost think our signs out front should say, not a 503C. I mean, it's just, but I mean, it's part of what we do, and it's not. To say it's a necessary evil is not the right way to describe it. It's what we do. It's who we are. It's what we're about. And it's what our agencies are about. But, you have to remind people that you're a business.
Yes.
I've always been told, my mom always told me, you have to remind rude people that they're rude. Mm-hmm. And in this situation, you have to remind people that you are a business.
Yeah. And you can still treat them
yes,
exceptionally well.
And sometimes they think you're a library.
Yeah.
Oh, it's quiet in here. This is nice. You got good music. Smells good in here.
I know.
Oh,
I almost want to change the furniture out to plastic folding chairs.
Just keep a stack in the rack there. Here you go. You got 10 minutes. We only got 3 of these.
But when you hire good people want to be good people, and they want to give people time, and it makes it hard. But you can move the day along and still treat people well. I really believe that you can.
Yes, you can.
And in today's climate where there's so much e-commerce, everything is done online and over the phone. There's just look at the number of retail malls that are closing, right? And stores that are staying open for business but don't have the retail locations anymore. It tells you business is still good. It's just being consumed a different way.
Right.
And every industry really has a portion of that, and just like ours. And when I started, we were coming out of a training from the company. I won't name names, but it was essentially training for retail experiences, but that's not how the industry is anymore. So I spent a lot of time retraining. Okay, this is how we're going to differentiate ourselves, and why it's so critical to hire the right people so that they can basically give the same experience over the phone. And I have somebody that might be on the phone for an hour. Half the conversation is conducting business. half the conversation is just shooting the breeze.
Yeah, shooting the breeze, building rapport.
And and it's not a bad thing.
No.
And what it's resulted into is, as those people become clients, they will just call in with random questions, but want to speak to that person, even though there's somebody else that's like there for that. And it's a great thing, but it's a challenge, because now when you're having those, it's no different than somebody popping in. Now you got to manage it over the phone.
Right.
And I think that takes another special skill to be able to put forth that kind of relationship building and that kind of, I'll say the word character, for lack of a better term, over the phone is a huge differentiator. And is much easier to derail that person, going back to what we were talking about, when the rest of the environment isn't good. And if somebody if somebody's not on board with how you're doing it, and kind of taking the energy out of everything that's going on, because even though it's person-to-person interaction, over the phone's different, over email's different, text is different, and you gotta be honed in, locked in, and have a really good attitude about it. And I've noticed that makes it actually much harder, bringing it all back together, to get the momentum back. And when I came to that conclusion, that's when I promised myself I will never make the mistake of waiting on a personnel decision again. And I am purposely slowing down the addition phase, slow to hire, quick to fire, as they say, because I was allowing myself to get impacted by the momentum shift, and saying, okay, I got to get somebody in here just to get things going.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But I mean, you risk making the same mistake. So I've slowed that down.
Yeah, the quick hit, you get off the quick hires.
Yeah.
When you really look at it long term, the quick hits they sucked the life out of the agency.
Yeah. And they really, you're throwing money away. The only in the sales business, the only thing you did was give the company you sell for money. Your money you tossed out the window.
Right.
And what matters most in business ownership?
Your money,
not other people's money.
You ain't using other people's money no more.
Exactly. OPM, baby.
I was going to say something about that. No, it will always be the hardest part of being a business owner is personnel. And it's still, even with the biggest corporations, the executive teams, it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's a scale situation, but what we do, and it's so organic and granular with, we're 3 or 4 people in an agency to 10, 12, 14 in an agency. It's still, you're touching everybody every day.
Yep.
And no matter what. And when you're touching people every day and you're looking them in the eye and you're meeting with them 2-3 times a week, or you're doing, daily role plays, it becomes more human.
Yep. Yeah, and that makes it harder.
That's really hard.
Now, what I have found, one trick I've started to use that in this last
secrets away.
In this, that's okay. And this, that's what I'm all about. in the last circumstance, I was able to move faster because I did this on the front end. Mm-hmm. And now I do it when I talk to people, and I've got jobs posted consistently, whether I'm going to hire somebody or not, because I just want to see people, meet people, talk to people. And what I'm doing now is basically telling folks up front, this is what I'm about. This is what the standard is. in non-corporate, non-human resource approved vernacular. So it is, if you can handle A, B, C, you'll fit. If you can't, I'm not your guy. We're not going to get along, because this is how you're going to be held accountable. This is how you're going to be treated. This is how you're expected to treat your colleagues and your teammates. And this is the environment we want. And I've only got 4 pillars. Be honest. Get 1% better every day. Be solution-minded. And have fun. That's it. The rest of it can come off of all of those things, but it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. And if somebody brings me a problem and I ask if they've thought about a solution yet, I send them away. If somebody,
then you call me,
and I send them to you. Every morning I've started to ask, what did you do yesterday? What did you accomplish? If they can't answer it clearly, they didn't follow the process and they didn't implement our systems. And if I say, did you have fun yesterday? And they say yes, I ask why. If they can't answer why, they didn't have fun.
No.
And if they didn't have fun and they can't say why, they really weren't engaged. And that's kind of how I keep the pulse now. But I'm including that essentially in my interviews to gauge how people respond. Like one of your colleagues who, after meeting me, mentioned that was intense, right? I took that as a compliment in a way that, yeah, you know what? I'm going to put that out in interviews and see how people react to me, because I'm not going to be like that all the time. But when I am like that, it can't be a surprise. And they need to know that this matters to me.
Right.
Growing my business matters. Being successful matters. Being able to share it matters. So if you don't want any skin in the game and it's just a job, you can't work with me, because I'm actually going to share the spoils when we're successful, and we're going to build it together. But we have to be on the same page. And when I've interviewed for jobs, I noticed it didn't matter if it was the NFL or the Ivy League. Nobody interviewed me that way. Shocking how unprepared people were in that process, and how unchallenged I felt in those environments, in those interviews. So I realized those people got lucky with me, but other times might not get lucky with that process. And I made that mistake myself, going into interviews unprepared. So I decided, you know what?
Well, we think we know what to ask, and we think we know what we want. Basically, we ask what we want to hear.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point.
We basically ask what
we go back to comfort, right? We want our ice cream.
Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, that's awesome. And it's very true. It's interesting. I was listening to a golf interview on the way up here, and they asked this particular professional this weekend. He's like, so what do you feel like you're doing better now? And he says, well, I'm better mentally. And the reporter asked a great follow-up question. He says, well, what are you doing better mentally? And, it took that professional golfer a little bit. And then his answer was he was all over the board. So he was checking the box with the reporter, thinking he was going to move on.
Yeah.
And then the reporter pressed him up again, just to your point.
Yep.
Well, if you had fun, what was fun? And it took him a little bit, and knowing the game, he gave a fluff answer.
Yeah.
He figured it out, and it was interesting. There was about 3 seconds of dead air before he came up with the answer, because he was trying to figure out. He's like, oh, shoot, I didn't think the guy was going to ask me a follow-up question, right? And it comes back to, interviewing. And then to your point, I've been interviewing a new producer that I thought was all in. She asked me, hey, can you give me some numbers? Can you do this? I got all these things I want to prepare. And I'm like, sure, I'll give you what I can, because you're not on board yet, but all fired up. And then started flaking out on me. And then finally pressed her up, and I said, I know we've got some personal things, with a death in the family, but we're going to get back to. We'll get you in for a follow up. But she kind of ghosted me a little bit, and she came back from being all gun ho, trying to, put together this 20-page presentation thing to, I'm just thinking about part-time now. I'm like, but you know what? I vetted it better this time. And I'm in a different role, and not that I'm the owner, but it's my responsibility to vet it in a way that protects the owner. And I was a little bit more diligent. I was a little bit, just like you said, asking. Don't ask the questions you want, the answers to already. Ask the questions that really matter.
Yep.
And if we're going to insert this person into the operation, I've got a couple personalities already. They don't listen to this podcast, so it's okay. But I got a couple personalities already. I don't need another one. And it's not our responsibility. Although I'm not the owner, I approach it as the owner, having been an owner and have the same mindset you do, is that our job's not to babysit. Our job's not to coddle. Our job's to support people that believe in the standard and know the expectation. But my line of questioning and my whole perspective, my whole purpose has changed. And it's just, again, you kind of beat yourself up about, I'll never do it again. It's been 2 times for you in what, a year and a half? Or really, I always say you're just a year in business. But, I've been in this game for 14 years now. And finally, I figured it out.
Well, I have an old boss who used to say some of us.
Here we go.
Some of us figure it out. Yeah, no, I'm not going to name drop him, but he would always joke on grading a player how long it might take somebody to come up with a final grade, and you always say, "Well, it takes some people longer than others." But it is a good point. It's never going to be perfect, and I am hard on myself, because if I'm harder on myself than anybody else, then I'm going to be prepared for any circumstance, and that's kind of the approach I take. Just some environments I've been in where I feel like you can do that and still have a family and have a life and have balance and not balance the way woke younger folks mention, where they don't have to, they get paid, but they don't have to work.
My gosh, you don't think about things on the weekend? That's crazy.
But as a business owner, in my opinion, the only way to succeed, especially if you're new to an industry, is to be harder on yourself than anybody else, because you will end up outlasting everyone else. Mm-hmm. And that's why I would say I'm never going to make that mistake again. And I'm really, and I don't mean it in a negative way toward me. I'm just, You know what? I threw out too much money trying to help somebody twice who at the end of the day wasn't bought in, and I didn't see that they weren't bought in because I wasn't asking the right questions. I wasn't going through the fit exercise. I was more worried about the skill and the experience than values and character. Because if you have the right values, you're going to learn the skills faster. And if you have the right values, you're going to really take ownership in what you do. And that's why I've slowed down the hiring process.
And it comes back to the question in our business too. Do you prefer to hire licensed people, or do you prefer to hire non-licensed
Well, this last person I just hired, non-licensed, I gave him a time frame. He exceeded it by a week. And he's great with people. He cares about the quality of his work. He's honest on the phone about being new. And he understands the concept of, for the result to come, you have to do the work. And it's funny, I asked him Friday last week, hey, okay, how were your first 2 weeks? And he said they were good. I said, do you feel productive? Do you feel confident? He's like, I'm getting more confident every day. And I said, do you have any input on systems and process? How do you, I said, I'm going to ask you how you feel about it, but I don't want your feelings. I want like your thoughts, like practical application. And he said, well, he's like, I really want to just learn it all first and feel like I've mastered it before I start thinking about why we're doing it. Because you've probably got a reason why you want me to do it this way. After I get really comfortable with it, if I feel like I don't understand, then I'll ask. And I was like, okay, fair enough. I said, I'm probably going to listen closer now because you said that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insightful. Mm-hmm. That's somebody with no experience in the industry, but that's somebody with life experience and professional experience. And somebody who just through conversation, asking the right questions in the interview process, I learned he lived in Oregon in his 20s, early 20s, drove to Northern California every fall to side hustle on a pumpkin patch and built up the concession business in the pumpkin patch to where they were averaging 20 grand a day, 30 grand a day in the concession stand. That's real work, ingenuity, initiative,
purpose.
That's values aligned fit. And, I feel so blessed that we found him, and I feel great that I included one of my original employees in the process. So there was buy-in there, and now the energy is really good day to day, but it's just going to take some more time for us to get the momentum back.
Right.
But the activity is back. And we've actually doubled our activity from a numbers standpoint in the last week. So it's starting to pick up. Now what I have to do is get back into the daily messaging, the daily reminders about that activity so that we don't get comfortable. Because I have some young people that love to get comfy. They always joke about furniture in the office, and I say the last thing I'm doing is bringing a couch into this office because you guys probably take 3 naps a day. Kind of like, the couch you have in your office.
I don't have a couch in my office. It's in a common area. But
anyway,
I do take a few naps out there 2 or 3 times a day.
I do think that's probably a good place to start. We've been going for a while. It always turns into...
good place to start or good place to end?
Or did I say start? Yeah. That's how long we've gone. I'm exhausted.
It's long for you.
Good place
We're way
to
over.
end.
Shot clock went off, I bet, 10 minutes ago.
As always.
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody hanging out on the front porch, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the Front Porch. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow, share, and leave a review so more people can join the conversation. Until next time, keep showing up, keep leading strong, and we'll see you back on the porch soon.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.